You've seen him, right? Scrolling through your feed, that perfect, sun-drenched photo of a van parked by the ocean, or a super cozy tiny house tucked away in the woods. It's this powerful dream of a simpler, freer life. You know, a life that promises to unplug you from all the high costs and craziness of modern living. But, and this is a big but, there are some major catches hiding behind that perfect filter.
And this right here, this is the core promise. This is the idea that fuels the entire movement. The belief that you can trade in a massive mortgage and a house full of junk for real financial independence and the freedom to live completely on your own terms. And who wouldn't want that?
Because as amazing as that dream sounds, the reality, well, it can get pretty complicated. There's a hidden financial trapdoor that most people don't see until it's too late, and it can completely change the game. So in this explainer, we're gonna find that trapdoor and see what's really going on. Okay, so first, let's be real. The dream itself, it's powerful for a reason. We're talking about a life with way lower expenses, the chance to be totally mortgage-free, and for some people, the insane flexibility to just pack up and go whenever you feel like it. And look, this isn't just some Instagram fantasy. The numbers back it up. A whopping 68% of tiny homeowners have zero mortgage, none. That's more than double the rate for people in traditional homes. That single number is what fuels the entire dream of financial freedom. All right, but now for our first dose of reality. Is that price tag really as good as it looks? Let's break down what it actually costs to go tiny. So you see a number like $60,000. And on the surface, that looks amazing, right? I mean, you compare that to the price of a regular house, and it feels like a total steal. It feels like you found a shortcut to owning your own place. But here's the twist. While the total price is low, the price you're paying for each square foot can be a real shocker, often about 38% higher than a traditional house. And why is that? Well, think about it. You're jamming all the most expensive stuff, your kitchen, your bathroom, all the plumbing and wiring into this tiny custom-built box. It gets expensive fast. And then there's the issue of actually paying for it. Good luck getting a normal 30-year mortgage because these homes are usually too small to qualify. So most people get pushed into personal loans or RV loans. And what does that mean? Higher interest rates, shorter payback times, and monthly payments that can be surprisingly high. Okay, so the money part is tricky, but that's just the start. The next big problem attacks the very heart of the dream, that idea of freedom. The fantasy of parking your home wherever you want runs smack into a giant wall of legal red tape. Let's talk about the #1 dream killer for tiny homeowners, zoning laws. These are the rules your local city or county has about what you can build, where you can build it, and what you can live in. And for so many people, this is where the dream just stops. And this quote from a Reddit user just says it all. He got a citation, a ticket, for parking his RV on his own property, a property he owned. It's this mind-blowing moment when you realize that just because you own the land doesn't mean you can live on it however you want. And it all boils down to this one super important legal fact. In the eyes of the law, if your tiny home has wheels, it's not a house. It's a recreational vehicle, an RV, period. That single classification is the root of almost all the problems with financing and zone. And this, my friends, is the trapdoor. A regular house on a foundation, that's a real estate asset. It builds equity, and usually it goes up in value. But a tiny home on wheels, it's legally a vehicle. It builds zero equity, and it starts losing value the second you drive it off the lot, just like a car. You're buying a lifestyle, not a long-term financial investment. All right, let's pivot to another huge part of the tiny life fantasy, going completely off-grid. The dream of self-sufficiency. A big piece of that is solar power, right? But the promise of endless, free energy from the sun meets a very cold, hard reality in the winter. So check this out. This data comes from a van builder, who's also an electrical engineer, by the way. In the summer, his 370-watt solar panel was cranking out a solid 2.6 kilowatt-hours of energy a day. Pretty good, but winter, whoa, that number crashed down to just 0.3 kilowatt-hours. That is a massive, massive drop. Now to put that in perspective for you, his most basic stuff, just the fridge and the power the inverter uses on standby, needed about 1.6 kilowatt-hours every day. So in the winter, he wasn't even generating enough power to keep his food from spoiling. Not even close. So what's the takeaway here? Well, as that engineer figured out, just relying on solar is a classic rookie mistake, especially if you live anywhere with a real winter.
He basically concluded you're probably better off spending your money on a bigger battery bank or a charger that juices up your batteries from the engine while you drive.
Okay, so after all of that, you might be thinking this whole thing is a terrible idea. But that's not the point. The point isn't to kill the dream, it's to make sure you go into it with your eyes wide open. So let's put together a little pre-flight checklist for anyone who's seriously thinking about this.
The whole thing really comes down to doing your homework. First up, and this is non-negotiable, check the specific local zoning codes everywhere you might want to live. Second, don't get seduced by the total price. Do the math on the cost per square foot. Third, if it's got wheels, be honest with yourself. It's going to depreciate like a car, not appreciate like a house. And finally, get real about how much power you actually use in the summer and in the winter.
So that brings us full circle, doesn't it? The tiny life can absolutely be a path to a simpler, cheaper way of living. For sure. But the biggest roadblocks aren't the ones you see in those perfect Instagram photos. The real hurdles are buried in boring zoning laws, bank loan applications, and the cold, hard math of a winter sun. And knowing that ahead of time, that's the real first step to making the dream actually work.